are some things which Father may be asking from you, and if you are not walking in the Spirit, you have not gone through this process of removing your flesh man, you may be like unto others who have said, this is a hard saying. It's time for me to go back. But the further you walk down the narrow road, and the more of the flesh you strip, allowing the righteousness of the law to be fulfilled in you. In verse 14 of that same chapter, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold unto sin. So this law is spiritual. But there are people who keep the law who do it in the flesh. We find these people in the Bible. They're at the synagogue one moment, and the next moment they want to dash Yeshua from the mountain. They're in the temple and they want to stone Messiah. They're talking about they don't want to go into the court of Pontius Pilate and be defiled, but they're bearing false witness. See, the law is spiritual, but you can keep the law while being carnal to a certain degree, and then you can't go any further. And we as a body of believers, we can't suffer that same error. We can't allow that old man to have any kind of breath at all. Because if we allow him to remain alive, at some point, you will hit that wall which you cannot go over. You will give him space to breathe. Something written in the Bible will offend you and cause you to go back, as we have seen, as I myself have seen many times before. Verse 22, for I delight in the law of God after the inward man, but I see another law in my members. See, this is that law he's speaking about, which is why we have to keep reading. We have to get context. We can't just look at the one verse and build a doctrine around the one verse, because in this chapter here and in this entire epistle, he gives you the ingredients to understand what he's talking about. See, he delights in the law in the inward man, in his spirit. But I see another law in his members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. So what is he talking about? Which leads to death. The law of sin, which is in his members. In his spirit man, in his inner man, he wants to serve the Almighty. But in his flesh, there is another law, and he is at war with himself, as we can be. We can know to do good, we can know what is written, but we find ourselves doing wrong. This is that process of having all of the knowledge in the world, but still remaining carnal. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank God through Yeshua Messiah our Lord. So then, with my mind, I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh, the law of sin. With his mind he's serving the law. With his spirit he desires to serve the law, but with his flesh there is this law of sin. But he's saying he can be freed from this law in his members by Yeshua the Messiah. Now he is free from the law of sin in his members. Does he go back to continue to sin? God forbid. Therefore, There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Messiah Yeshua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Now this here is where the doctrine of some may begin and may end. Some people will come to that verse and believe and create a doctrine about, don't tell me about what is written, because brother, there is no condemnation to walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. Not realizing that Paul himself in the previous chapter and chapters gave you all the framework to understand what he was saying. It's Messiah that frees you from this law which is in operation in your members, which causes one to war against yourself, to commit sin. But now that you are freed, are you free to go and commit sin again?